So we will see the third need of the constitution, or why constitution is required. Constitution is required for the limitations on the powers of government. Limitations on the powers of government. How constitution will limit the powers of government. We'll see that, but this is clearly not enough. Suppose you decided who had the authority to make decisions, but then this authority passed laws that you were thought patently unfair. It prohibited you from practicing your religion, for instance. Then, or it enjoins clothes of certain color that were prohibited, or that you are not free to sing songs. People who belong to a particular caste or religion would always have to serve others and would not be allowed to retain any property, or that government could arbitrarily arrest someone, or that only people of certain skin color would be allowed. So in order to stop all this misuse of power, there should be restrictions on the government, so that the government do not have arbitrary power. Restrictions on the government, and this function is performed by constitution, and this is the utility of constitution. So we'll see that in context of constitution of India, we have fundamental rights. We have fundamental rights. So these fundamental rights are given to citizens. These fundamental rights empower citizens with certain rights. These rights cannot be violated even by the government. Since government cannot violate these rights, this exerts limits, or this acts as limitations on the power of government. And these fundamental rights are in constitution. This fundamental right is in constitution. So in this manner, constitution restricts on the powers of government. It is for this reason, or the utility of the constitution, every country will have constitution. So third function of the constitution is to set limits on the government, which government itself can impose on citizens. These limits are fundamental in the sense that government can never trespass them, because these limits are imposed by constitution itself. So constitutions limit the power of government, and what is the most common way of doing it is by having fundamental rights in the constitution. Every citizen possesses fundamental rights. These rights even government cannot violate. So the exact content and interpretation of this right varies from country to country, but almost all the constitutions will protect the basic cluster of rights called as fundamental rights. Citizens will be protected from the arrest arbitrary. Then this is one of the basic limitations on the government. Citizens normally have the right to basic necessities or basic liberties such as freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of association, freedom to conduct trade or business. In practice, these rights can be limited during national emergencies. This we'll read ahead, how during the imposition of national emergency under Article 352, all fundamental rights can be suspended except certain rights. This we'll see in the further chapter. Now we'll see the fourth utility of the constitution. Fourth need or utility of the constitution. Constitution will have aspirations and goals of the society. What kind of goals society has? What kind of aspirations the society has? This we'll also see that in preamble of the constitution we have certain aspirations and goals, that is liberty, equality and fraternity. So these are the aspirations or goals of Indian society. of the Indian society, and these aspirations and goals are mentioned in preamble, and preamble is in constitution. So we have seen that the constitution will have aspirations and goals which every society aspire to achieve, or what kind of society constitution wants to develop. So this is how we will see that different type of aspirations are there in the constitution. For example, in India there is an aspiration of a caste free society. So there is article number 17 which abolishes untouchability. This is how different parts of the constitution helps us in achieving the goals of Indian society. In country like South Africa, which had a widespread prevalence of racial discrimination, its new constitution tried to end this racial discrimination. This is the picture of Jawaharlal Nehru. In this picture, he is trying to balance different aspirations from the different sections of this society. Now, we have seen that different constitutions has different aspirations. It depended on the society. The Indian constitution rather not only mentions but enables government to take positive welfare measures. For example, reservation policy. This reservation policy tries to achieve an equity or equal society or equality in the society. So constitution also enables government to achieve these aspirations. Now, having seen all these examples, what we can conclude that the fourth function of the constitution is to enable government fulfill the aspirations or goals of the society and create conditions for the just society. This kind of provisions are mentioned in the preamble, fundamental rights and directive principles of the state policy. For example, in DPSP 44, there is a provision for uniform civil code. By having the uniform civil code in the country, India can be a just society. We can create conditions of just society in India. So this is all about aspirations. Now we'll see the enabling provisions in the different constitutions. As we have seen the example of the Indian constitution, we'll see this kind of provisions are in South Africa and this kind of provisions are also in Indonesia. Having seen four different needs of the constitution, we'll see the fifth utility or the need of the constitution in the society. A constitution develops a fundamental identity of the people. It means it develops a collective identity. The Indian constitution develops the identity of an Indian. See, what do you mean by identity? There are different kinds of identity based on caste, religion. Based on religion, a person can have an identity of a Hindu, person can have identity of a Christianity, etc. Similarly, based on ethnicity, there can be different kinds of identity based on race. So similarly, Constitution of India creates an identity of an Indian, and this identity, all the 120 crores of people, the total population of India, will have same identity. So this is a function performed by constitution by creating collective identity. Having seen this, we will see that the constitution not only develops this kind of identity of collective identity in terms of political identity and moral identity also. Okay, so you can see in this picture. In this picture is related to Iraqi constitution, and here you can find different kinds of identities. What are these different kind of identities? Sunnis, Kurds, Shiites. Okay, this is the capital of Iraq. So here there is clash of different identities. This can be avoided by creating a constitution. An Indian constitution has successfully created the Indian identity. So this is how different constitutions create identity. So this is a very good example of an Iraqi constitution. Every student should read this example in order to understand this function of the constitution of creating identity. Now, having seen all these things, we will see the authority of the constitution. Authority of the constitution. Three questions we can ask about constitutions. What are these three questions? We will see. The first question related to the authority of constitution is, what is constitution? The constitution which is created, is it effective? If it is effective, why it's effective and how it is effective? Third thing, the constitution which is created, is it just? We'll see this. So here you will find the meaning of constitution. What is constitution, or the meaning of the constitution? What is constitution? Constitution is a document having number of articles specifying how the state should be constituted and what norms it should follow. So this is the basic meaning of the constitution. When we ask for the constitution of country, we are usually referring this document. But some countries like UK do not have single documentation. Why? Because their constitution is not written. It's unwritten. It does not mean oral, but all the provisions are not codified in a single document. So in context of United Kingdom, its constitution is not codified into a single constitution. Rather, they have a set of documents and decisions which can be called as constitution. So this is another meaning of constitution in context of UK. So we can say that constitution, final definition, constitution, what do you mean by constitution? Constitution is a document or a set of document which perform the functions we mentioned above. After having seen these crucial questions, we will see how a constitution is made effective. How a constitution is made effective. How effective is the constitution? What it makes it effective? What ensures that it has a real impact on the lives of people? So making a constitution depend on the number of factors. So of all these factors, this is the first factor, the mode of promulgation. How constitution is made. Promulgation means making of the constitution. The manner in which the constitution is created will determine whether the constitution is effective or not. This refers to how constitution has came into being, who has crafted the constitution, how much authority did the framers of the constitution has. So if you will look at the most successful constitutions, for example India, America and United States, they were created after the popular national movements, and so their constitutions were successful. But in many countries you will find these military leaders who were not popular. Not popular means they did not have the support of the people. They did not have the ability to carry the people with different ideas with themselves. So their constitution created by these military leaders was not successful. Although in case of India, we had created Constituent Assembly in 1946, it had a long history of national movement where the leaders, our constitutional framers, has the ability to take different sections of the society together. So it depends who is creating the constitution, and depending on that we can say whether constitution will be successful or not. So if you take into consideration the promulgation, then promulgation determines success or the failure of the constitution. If the military leaders had created a constitution who does not have popular support, constitution is bound to fail. But if nationalists or the leaders of the national movement has created the constitution who has ability to carry with them diverse sections of the society, then constitution is successful. For example, India, USA and South Africa. There is also a good example of Nepal, which for a long period of time was not able to create a successful constitution because of lack of consensus. Here, from the example of Nepal, you can see that its promulgation was not successful, and so its constitution was also not successful. Then you will see the second factor which makes constitution successful or not is the provisions of the constitution. The provisions of the constitution will determine whether the constitution is successful or not. For example, if constitution grants freedom and equality to all, then constitution is bound to succeed because all will abide. For example, India. But if constitution does not grant this freedom to all, then constitution will not succeed because all people will not abide to the constitution thinking it is unjust. So the provisions of the constitutions will determine, these provisions of the constitution will determine whether the constitution will be successful or not, like as in the previous case of promulgation. So like this, we will see how the provisions of the constitution has a role in determining whether the constitution is successful or not. As far as this constitution is concerned, you will see that if constitution allows majority of the population to oppress minority, then minorities have no reason to accept the constitution because the provisions of the constitutions are unjust. Also, the constitution provides some privileges to some members. Even if any group feels that its identity is stifled, they will not abide by the constitution. So, if the provisions are just, constitution will be successful. Now, from here we can conclude that if the provision preserves the freedom and equality of all the members, constitution will succeed. Do you think Indian constitution does so? If so, what are the reasons? Try to think over this. Now we will see the third factor which will determine whether the constitution is successful or not. The third factor is balanced institutional design. What do you mean by balanced institutional design? The balanced institutional design, it is related to the distribution of power. How constitution is dividing power between different organs of the government, so that no particular organ is able to control the other organs and misuse the powers granted by the constitution. In this, you will see constitutions are often supported not by the people. Good prepared or well-crafted constitution will fragment the power so intelligently that not a single group will be able to control or subvert the constitution. This kind of design or balanced institutional design will ensure no single institution has monopoly of the power. Do you think Indian constitution has such balanced institutional design? Yes, the Constitution of India divides power between three organs of the government. Legislative power is given to legislature, executive power is given to executive, and judicial power is given to judiciary. Apart from that, There are several independent statutory bodies which maintain the balance of power. So, if this kind of system will ensure that even if one institution subverts the constitution, other will try to control and check the transgression. So an intelligent system of checks and balance will facilitate the success of the Indian constitution. Now, the another aspect of the intelligent design is to see whether constitution must strike right balance between certain values, norms and procedures. At the same time, does constitution allow flexibility in its operations to adapt changing needs and circumstances? Too rigid constitution is likely to break down. Okay. So this is how the balanced constitution will play a role whether the constitution is effective or not. So till now what we have seen that in determining the authority of the constitution, three things will matter. What kind of people enacted the constitution? How power is organized by the constitution? Does the constitution has hopes and aspirations of the society? So on these three things we have seen. Now we will see in the context of India. We will see in the context of India whether promulgation, is responsible for the success of the constitution, whether the constitution of India is having a balanced design, whether the constitution of India has just provisions, and then we will see whether the constitution of India is successful or unsuccessful on these three parameters. So of all these three parameters, first parameter is promulgation. Here in this first we will see how Constitution of India was made or promulgated. Who are the crafters of the Constitution of India? So considering this question, we will see that the Constituent Assembly was formed in 1946. Constituent Assembly was formed in 1946, which provided which framed the new constitution, and the members of the Constituent Assembly were indirectly elected, and Constituent Assembly was designed under cabinet mission. This question will come in prelims, that the Constituent Assembly was designed on whose plan? Cabinet mission, Cripps mission, or August offer, or Indian Independence Act 1947. So answer will be cabinet mission. So what was the plan of cabinet mission under which the Constituent Assembly was designed? We will see the plan of cabinet mission for creating Constituent Assembly. According to this plan, members will come from both princes and princely states. In each province, three main communities were taken into consideration: Muslim, Sikh and general. And in proportion to population, the number of leaders were sent in the assembly. The members of each community in the provincial legislative were also elected. Then the method of selection in case of princely state is determined by the consultation. In other words, nomination. So in Constituent Assembly, two types of members were there: from provinces, who were elected but indirectly, and another from princely states. And the members in Constituent Assembly from princely state were nominated, not elected indirectly like the members of the Constituent Assembly from the provinces. So this is how Constituent Assembly was framed under the Cabinet Mission. Now, after having seen the mission's plan to create Constituent Assembly, we will see the composition. So you will see that after the partition, the number came down to 299. Then 284 members were present on 24th January 1950 when the Constitution was enacted. Then Constitution came into force on 26th January 1950. This day is celebrated as Republic Day because Constitution of India came into force. So we have seen all these things. Now we'll see the composition of the Constituent Assembly, which drafted the Constitution, touches upon the surface of how Constitution was made. There is an important criticism that the members of the Constituent Assembly were not elected on the basis of universal suffrage. But we can say that the members of all the religions were represented. Constituent Assembly has 28 members from scheduled caste. Although Congress party dominated, but there were members from other parties also, and Congress itself was a diverse party which was able to accommodate all shades of opinion within it. Now here ask a small question to yourself. What would have happened if the Constituent Assembly was elected by all the people of India? Could Constitution could have been different? Think over this question. See, at that time of partition, it was not possible that all the people could vote on the Constituent Assembly. And even if they would have voted, our Constitution would not have been very different. Because our constitutional framers or nationalist leader exactly crafted the Constitution the people wanted, unlike military leaders. Now we will see the principle of deliberation which was used in the Constituent Assembly. We have seen that the authority of the Constituent Assembly not only came that they were representatives, but also authority of the Constitution depended on the procedures adopted by the Constituent Assembly. It also depended on the values its members brought to the deliberation. So we will see that each member upon the Constitution with the interest of whole nation in mind, there were many disagreements among the members. But these disagreements were not so big as in the case of Iraq that they were not able to frame the Constitution. The differences were legitimate, or legitimate differences of principles were there. So what kind of differences between the members of Constituent Assembly were there regarding the framing of Constitution is that should India be a centralized or decentralized country? What should be the relation between center and state? What kind of powers should be with judiciary? Should Constitution protect right to property? So all these differences were sorted out in a very effective manner finally by the members of the Constituent Assembly, and you will see that the Constitution of India drew its authority not only from the members, which one might call, but also based on the public reason. Members had done a great emphasis on discussion and reasoned argument before adopting any provisions, and there were voluminous debates. You will find in Constituent Assembly. Also there was the debate whether the governor was to be directly elected or indirectly elected, but our framers of the Constitution has very intelligently solved this kind of differences with consensus. Now, after having seen the differences, we will focus on the procedures adopted by the Constituent Assembly. This is a picture of Rajendra Prasad, President of Constituent Assembly, and the picture also here you will see Bhim Rao Ambedkar, who was the chairman of drafting committee. So Constituent Assembly has total 8 committees chaired by different members. This we will do in detail in the later class, and questions do come in PT, but here not that much fact is there. So we'll deal this in detail in the classes ahead. So you will see that even Patel and Nehru had disagreed on the many issues, but they were able to sort out all these differences. Now we will see the another dimension. What makes Constitution effective was that our nationalist movement had some effect on the Constitution, and our Constitution, or what our Constitution has inherited from the nationalist movement, because no Constitution is simply a product of an assembly. Assembly in case of India was very diverse, and it could not have any consensus if there would have been no national movement. So the main principles which Constitution enshrined was because of the nationalist movement or the long struggle. Before creating Constitution, there were decades of nationalist movement which already had certain principles, over which there was consensus that should be adopted in India. So what are these principles? So the best summary of this principle is objective resolution. This was moved by Jawaharlal Nehru in Constituent Assembly, and this later became the preamble of India. And this objective resolution gave the direction to the Constituent Assembly, on which direction the members have to create the Constitution. And this objective resolution was the product of Indian national movement, which had an history of over 100 years. So based on objective resolution, there were consensus that there should be equality, liberty, democracy, sovereignty and cosmopolitan identity in the Constitution of India. Okay. This is how the national movement has affected the Constitution. Having seen this, now we will analyze the institutional arrangement in the Constitution of India. Whether the Constitution of India has balanced arrangement regarding the institutions, or whether the Constitution of India is dividing power properly between the different organs, that is executive, judiciary and legislature. So you will see that India had adopted a parliamentary form of government and a federal arrangement. This parliamentary form of government divides power between executive plus legislative wing of the organ, and federal arrangement will divide the power between central government and state government. So because of this intelligent institutional design, our Constitution of India is successful even today. In this successful design, you will find that executive and legislature will power is divided between these two wings, and center and state government on the basis of federal provisions. So most balanced governmental arrangement you will be able to find in the Constitution of India. And in this matter, our framers of Constitution were not averse to borrow from the other constitutions. Can you think that all the provisions we have borrowed, what would have happened if we did not borrow all this Constitution from anything else? Was borrowing good or bad thing? Just think over that. Okay, but one thing is there, that even though we borrowed different provisions from the different countries, it was not a complete slavish imitations. We have modified it and then inserted in the Constitution, suiting the Indian needs and design. Finally, we'll see This chart, this is important from prelims and mains perspective. What provisions India has adopted from the other countries? First, we'll see British Constitution. We have adopted first past the post system. So what do you mean by first past the post system? If there is an constituency and there are candidate A and B, who will win the election? So here the person who gets majority of the votes will win, not necessarily more than 50%. So if there are candidate A, candidate B, candidate C and candidate D, if A got 21% of vote, B got 20, C got 19 and D 18, then who will win according to the first past post system? The person who is getting the highest number of votes, not necessarily more than 50%. This will do in detail ahead in the class, but for time being you just understand that first past the post system we have adopted from the British Constitution, parliamentary form of government, rule of law. This is in our under Article 14, equality before law and equal protection of law, then institution of speaker and his role, then the law making procedure. All this we have borrowed from the British Constitution. Directive principles of state policy, DPSP, we have borrowed from Irish Constitution. Principles of liberty, equality and fraternity, we have borrowed from French Constitution. Fundamental rights, concept of judicial review and independence of judiciary, we have borrowed from the American Constitution. Then the quasi-federal form or federal system with the strong center, we have borrowed from Canada. Then the residuary list, we have borrowed from Canada. So this is how Indian Constitution borrowed from the different countries, and all these provisions we have borrowed from the different countries. This kind of question can be asked in prelims, that which provision has been borrowed from this country. This will do in detail in our regular lectures. So finally, this is the conclusion of the whole chapter. You please read it. We have discussed the whole chapter. Then these are few exercises you can solve at home. These are very easy questions. Any student who has understood all the basic concepts of the class will be able to answer these questions. They are just true and false, and this is here we will complete this chapter 1. Okay, so here we are completing chapter 1. Now we'll move towards the chapter 2. Thank you.